Marcus and Fabio, who will talk about a topic close to my heart, which is design in this new paradigm of AI, the human-machine interface. Take it away, Fabio.
You. Well, the survivors, some people are escaping. They're like, design, let's go, let's go. And in fact, actually, I almost feel like we're in need of a little bit of a rebalancing of sorts. Because I remember we started by saying that this place has a purpose. It's a transmission system for beauty, right? Yes? And I think I have not heard that word ever since. Nobody has actually spoken about AI and what it will do to beauty. Will it bring more beauty into the world? And as a designer, that is a question that is dear to my heart. It's almost like the quintessential question. If you see design as a discipline that is interested first and foremost in aesthetics, and by the way, it's not. It definitely has a penchant for aesthetics. Let's bring it back to humans, shall we? Because I think it was only Kenneth who spoke about this sort of the transition for humans, the human factor in the mix. 70% of the effort will be about getting people to believe, to trust. How does it feel? That is a question that I often ask myself whenever I'm asked to contribute to the innovation process. How will people feel at the other end of whatever journey we take them on? And clearly, with a lot of these technologies, you can get this sort of outcome. This is, quotely, what one, if not the world's best Go player said after being beaten by a computer, a neural network, an AI, whatever you want to call it. And it's definitely that feeling that there is something there that doesn't sound, that doesn't feel, that doesn't behave like a human being. Last year, it was kind of like me. But this year, man, it's the god of Go. And Go, unlike chess, was considered to be, which is the reason why I'm choosing this specific quote to end the session, because Go was perceived or conceived to be too creative. So creativity. And creativity and this feeling of slowly and then suddenly, which is again what we have seen at work in many of the charts and graphs, where things all of a sudden go boom, and we didn't expect it. And oh my God, am I going to lose my job? And in fact, other players, like that player, actually decided, this is it for me. There's nothing that I can actually do. I will never beat this machine. But we've been charting, I work for a company called Accenture and for Accenture Song, which is kind of their creative agency. And as a designer, I've been trying to put myself, of course, at the service of customers and designing solutions through technology that speak to this kind of higher end, hopefully creating some beauty along that process. We've been tracking with yearly trends the evolution of AI, trying to really understand what is the role that AI plays in the world. What is its purpose, if you want to use one of these trendy words. And these are not all of them, actually. I think there was even one prior to the 2017 one, which was called AI is the New UI, which was really speaking about those first steps towards the manifestation of AI into the world. But some of these trends kind of speak about that relationship. So me, myself, and AI very much kind of speaks about what we're experiencing right now, the post-chatbot intelligent agent sort of future that we're starting to explore with the ChatGPTs of the world. And then later on, a machine's search for meaning was actually starting to really question what is the role that these constructs, that these solutions are going to play in our lives. Could we enhance, you've heard it, I think, across the day, could we enhance human potential? Could we give people superpowers? But at the end, will they feel foreign, or will they actually be perceived as aids or servants, contributors maybe? Then synthetic realities was very much kind of talking about the world of not ChatGPT. Nobody spoke about Midjourney or DALL-E today, But because I come from a visual field, those are the platforms where you generate these amazing new images. And you might remember last year, I believe, or a few months ago maybe, because things are moving fast, as we heard, images of the Pope wearing a trendy puffy jacket made the rounds of the news. And later on, a famous American politician being dragged by the police into jail. And of course, those were manufactured images. And I think as of only a few weeks ago or days ago, Tom Hanks had to say that he was not that person in that ad that actually depicted him. So synthetic realities was a trend that was absolutely kind of speaking about this sort of like post-truth society. And definitely AI is at the core, at the heart of that. And then only a few years ago, we had one called designed intelligence, which is still very dear to my heart because it tried to capture the 3 E's that today I think we heard time and time again. The E of enhancing, again, enhancing human abilities, enhancing human potential, turning an HR person into a super HR person. Or maybe somebody from Gucci's customer support department into an amazing channel of brand experience. But then there was also the empowerment, the empowering. Of course, the story that we heard from Kenneth and Gucci is great because I think you saw in that video people enthused about the idea of being supported and being helped by AI. But, you know, there's also maybe the story, if not of the Go player, and you have to almost zoom all the way back to 1997 to the chess players that were beaten by Deep Blue back then. So we're in IBM and Google territory, all voices and people that you heard speak today. But, you know, if you are one of those people that are delivering packages for Amazon, you will probably hear more like a feeling of being puppeted. You know, I'm being told to go here and then there and then there. And you can compare that to the feeling maybe of an old school post person who had their round, who had a sense of control over their day. And now that sense of control has been taken away. So the second E was about empowering people working in environments that are somewhat driven by AI to feel that they're still part of the game and not, again, puppeted. And then the third E was talking about envisioning. And envisioning is all about inventing new things that didn't exist before. And we'll talk later, maybe with Marcus, about, you know, what would be the Spotify of the future, because he worked there, and we talked about it. You know, the Spotify of the future may be a platform with no human-made or human-conceived song, or maybe just one continuous, never-ending song designed for you. This year, the trend is okay creativity. And I bring it back to creativity. Because, of course, as of last year, generative AI came to the foreground. And it's, again, one of these like seismic changes and disruptions that we're experiencing. And it started to feel really close to my heart. Because in the same way that those Go players were feeling a bit safe, also designers and creatives have felt that AI wasn't really concerning them. Because, of course, creativity is one of those human traits that would be really, really hard, impossible even to replicate. But hey, all of these images that you see here were generated by Midjourney or Dolly, one of these, again, visual platforms. And, of course, they are amazing. And it takes a fraction of a second, like that silly answer that we heard during one of those funky hallucination stories before. And you could even say, you know, maybe these are hallucinations. But isn't that what art is all about? Hallucinations? Somebody's hallucinations? And you could even say, for a lot of people, these are amazing ways to democratize art. Remember when people started playing with Word and PowerPoint, and somebody said, oh my God, now everybody's a designer. Will design go out of practice? And actually, what's happened? The opposite. Okay, creativity speaks essentially about a different role that AI will play when it comes to creativity. So not necessarily for maybe subtracting time from tasks, increasing efficiencies. We'll talk about that in a second or two. but it's really about amplifying, unleashing creativity. And in this case, back to another trend that I mentioned before, this is about becoming a peer of sorts. You might know that a lot of artists these days often have the initial idea. They conceive the final piece. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these amazing art pieces by Ai Weiwei, for example, or Anish Kapoor. And often, the idea, the nugget, it's in the artist's head. But then there are sometimes thousands even, in the case of Ai Weiwei, executors, people that actually then create the art piece itself. And so, in a way, art is already somewhat of a team sport, although sometimes the artist takes precedence, and of course, their personal brand guarantees the quality of the result. In this dynamic, the ideator, the collaborator, the quality setting, the curator, these are probably the dynamics that we're looking at when it comes to AI, generative AI more specifically, the production of art, but also maybe not necessarily just art, interfaces of the future, systems that will be manufactured, coded by generative AI platforms. So the opportunity here is, of course, and you heard it time and time again today, capturing all of those productivity targets. Can I reduce? Can I subtract? Can I make this process, which is now human intensive, more efficient? Can I slice cost? And of course, the fear often is, will there be victims along the way? Will I just remove people from the process and replace them? But that is just one half, I think, of the opportunity field. The other one is really unleashing creativity, creating things that never were, in the same way that a lot of the hallucinations of ChatGPT can be seen as maybe just glitches, or on the other side, the proof that the system is just being creative and it's turning a very respected data scientist into a soccer star. And who wouldn't want to be a soccer star? So, in this discussion, and we'll have a chat again in a few minutes about it, we have really focused on that first statement, amplifying productivity. And I'm here on this stage also saying, what about beauty? What about creativity? What about the rest of human intent and things that enrich our lives? And why design? Because I think in many ways, misquoting probably McLuhan, because apparently he didn't really say this, but he's been attributed to saying this, because I think at the heart of every designer, there's a tool shaper. There's somebody that sees an opportunity, and I'm not in any way saying that we're the only ones. Of course, people who have a technology background or a business background often have the same approach, but you could say that in the head and eyes of a designer lie almost like someone who's constantly looking for ways to perfect the present, to improve the quality of the future. I can make that chair a little bit better so that it's more comfortable, or maybe even just a little bit more beautiful. And I can make this tool a little bit better. So what does this statement kind of say? Not just about design, but about what we put into the world, and why I think it's so important to talk about AI in an avenue like this. Because a few years ago, we started removing the on-off buttons on our smartphones and devices, and we wanted those tools to be always on. But they have in turn made us always on. So we put tools into the world, and then those tools change us in return and create societies around them. So I think we talk about ethics a lot when it comes to AI, because we know for a fact that whatever these tools are going to put into the world will change society in return. And we know already a lot of what the unintended consequences of a lot of our shiny technologies have created for society. So I think it's a very important part of the discussion. So back to beauty. As that Go player at the very beginning was being defeated, other Go players were witnessing what was happening. And maybe, of course, on an emotional level, his reaction was, oh my God, I'm done. We're extinct now. Remember Jurassic Park? But others were actually looking at the game, maybe because they were not as emotionally involved. They were not being beaten. And so apparently somebody, another top Go player, made this statement during one of those 3 or 4 games. And it's a very human, aesthetic reaction. I've never seen such a move. I could not conceive of such a move. And it's such a beautiful move. Which is pretty similar to what the chess players of 1997 were kind of saying. Oh, the game has changed. You know, chess as I knew it is no longer the only way to play the game. And in fact, as you might know, an entire new way of playing chess developed out of that. It's called centaur chess. You play together with a computer against sometimes a human opponent or other couples. Okay, creativity, a co-pilot, a true assistant, a true peer. And I have a feeling that we're still lacking the right, almost metaphors. And I think we heard it again today several times. We talk about the role that humans play, I think in a very protective manner, rightly so probably, for humans. And we often talk about a relationship which is essentially of control. Who's in control here? I want the human at the end to be in control. I don't want to remove the human from the process. I want the human to be the supervisor, or maybe I want the human to be the curator. But what about maybe this crazy idea? This is a cobot. And it's an interesting metaphor here, because these are big industrial robots. And typically, in an industrial production environment, they are so dangerous to human beings. They're literally in a cage. I don't know if you've ever been in a production plant, you know, like a car manufacturing production plant. So you see these big robots, and they're just moving like crazy, soldering things and, you know, moving things. And they're dangerous to human beings. What the whole idea of cobot tries to suggest is, what if we make these dangerous machines aware of their surroundings? What if we make them aware of the fact that human beings around them might be harmed by what they do? What if we give them enough of that human intelligible behavior so that the human being that moves around them knows where they're kind of looking and what they're going to do next? And we heard today plenty of examples of transparency, intelligibility, really being able to guess, to double guess what's happening next and what the robot is going to be doing, and vice versa. So metaphorically, we're now giving birth to these machines of amazing capability that are going to revolutionize society. Very dangerous machines. And a lot of our discussions around policy setting, to me, feels and sounds like we're trying to put some cages around these things to protect us from the danger that they might be creating. Well, maybe we should be talking and thinking, how do we create enough intelligibility, reciprocal intelligibility, so that we are aware of what they want to do, and they will be aware of what we want to achieve. And this is a different mindset. It's a true cultural change. And maybe, we're starting to tiptoe into science fiction land, but, there's plenty of reasons why we know now for a fact that technology is not value neutral, that technology typically encodes the cultural values of those that invented it. So when we talk about the democratization of this and that, that's a value system. That's not to be taken for granted. Back to art, and I'll wrap this up, and then we'll open it up for a quick discussion. This is one of the first cases, as documented by the New York Times, of an artist submitting not the product of their only imagination, but of their collaboration with, I believe, in this case, Midjourney, or one of these, again, image production, AI-based, generative AI-based solutions. And he submitted this, he won the prize. He won the competition, the art competition. And as you can tell or imagine, the art artists were not exactly happy. And they were saying, this is not art. This was done in a second by a computer. So who are we giving the prize to? And again, this to me speaks about a different state of things where art, humans, the things that we can no longer maybe fully call tools, will collaborate to achieve something that is bigger than the sum of their parts, which might, again, look at a micro scale, like the Gucci example, somebody really happily saying, I can add my voice in here. I don't feel like I'm puppeted. I'm actually enjoying this, and I feel that it's enriching my job. It's making me a better customer service person, and I can, I'm freed up to do more, maybe, and to even be more personal about the way that I'm helping this customer. In other cases, we might not be so lucky. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabio. Thank you. Please join me on a quick chat.
We're sitting?
Yeah, I think
we're
sitting. We're standing all the time, so we need to relax a little bit. But one thing that we previously talked about when it comes to AI in general is it's going quite fast, and I think also that's the reason why we're sitting here. It feels like it's just like speeding up, and we're trying to hold on and understand what is going on and how we should approach it. And I mean, just to give an example here, is like I think it was in 2022 where OpenAI launched ChatGPT, and then a focal point in a global conversation all of a sudden shifted to AI assistant all of a sudden. And for me, it made me think about like, maybe some of these future science fiction scenario is not that far away. I'm not going to debate if it's like her or if it's Terminator or something that we're all thinking about, but it's quite clear like that the trajectory that we're on right now, it's going faster than we even could anticipate it, like with AI technology. And you ended your intro here on a slight provocation in saying that our tools might become our peers. So I wonder what you think about how our relationship will change and also our daily interactions with our personal devices and services that we use.
It's a totally fascinating question, I think, and even anticipating some of the things that we had discussed a little bit in the course of our conversation. I feel that sometimes we just lack a better vision of the future, So last week I ended up kind of going to see The Creator. I don't know if anybody has watched that movie. Of course, I'm a big science fiction fan because I'm just curious about how we imagine the future. And if you haven't watched the movie, I would even say don't bother. It's visually stunning, narratively so-so. But it's, again, one of those cases where the premise is some AI has nuked Los Angeles, and the US went to war against AI, with China backing AI up. So the whole movie is basically predicated on a conflict scenario where we've been failed or we've been somewhat betrayed, by our Frankenstein monster. And that interaction then, of course, plays out, with robots in the mix and all of that. But, I think that we're really missing almost like, back to beauty, optimistic visions of these futures. We haven't really been intrigued by showcasing a place where we could actually be happy and having specific interactions, with our servants or partners of the future. And it was interesting, actually, to see what I think Anders at the very beginning, or somebody this morning, was showing in terms of people starting to have almost like romantic, her-like interactions with the new version of our chatbots, and even questioning, the value of having human-to-human relationships. And you can, again, look at that as dystopia, or you can look at that as potentially one of the shapes in which the future is going to come. So as we look at those experiments, as we look at those outliers, you could also see some nuggets of what maybe the nature of our interactions in the future will be like. And of course, nobody would imagine today having a heart-to-heart conversation with one of those relatively simple, linear chatbots that we're so often forced to interact with, whenever we try to solve a problem, typically. And we clearly see that they only are meant to take us all the way to a solution, if they can, or eventually give us a chance to actually speak to a human being. But instead, what if that really would become, or could become, one of our main avenues of relating with any service? This is probably, one way to imagine a multimodal interaction of the future, where some of it will be chat, maybe others will be voice. I'll click on some things. I will maybe, my body language will be read. The tone of voice that I'm reacting to certain interactions will be evaluated, and so on and so on. And I think, in a way, this is just pointing, for me, to a very rich, interesting, fruitful future that we need to design. And that's really the call to action to people like me, but also, I think, to everyone in this room.
That's cool. I'm also a big fan of quotes and phrases to understand the future. And one thing that comes into my mind when seeing about this is the phrase, medium is the message. So in other words, it is the medium that shapes us when technology becomes integrated to our everyday life. And you also use that quote that's attributed to Marshall McLuhan, saying that we shape our tools and our tools shape us. And I think that's quite relatable if you think about social media, how that has changed our private life, and if you look at Slack, for example, how that has impacted our work life. So how do you see that this AI technology will shape us, both private and in work?
Again, very fascinating kind of question. I think we're in the infancy of our interaction with these new solutions, platforms. Even the name, sometimes, it's difficult, because I would be tempted to call them tools, but I think that positions us in a certain specific mindset, which might not necessarily be the right mindset in the longer term. But there's a little bit of like horseless carriage thinking here at work. That famous kind of quote, again, I think it was somebody at Ford, or the founder of Ford, if I'd asked people some comments about, do we ask users, customers? If I'd asked customers, they would have asked for faster horses. There is a little bit of that going on at the moment. We're just replacing the old chatbots with better and more fluid agents or intelligent agents. So there's just this sort of like layering. And I think you're absolutely asking the right question. What sort of like world building are we on a trajectory to through those tools? Because they will shape, our expectations around how to make sense of these new technologies. And in the way that, again, people like me at the end, but not only, of course, designers, technologists, and business people together, in the way that we're going to be offering these solutions to the market, will shape, the expectations of what that world will look and feel like. So that's why I was also saying, can we start to imagine already today things that were just simply not possible only a few weeks or a few months ago? Again, I already mentioned that during the initial chat. You worked at Spotify, and so for me, the most intriguing aspect and the most intriguing kind of opportunity lies in starting to imagine a Spotify of the future, where in the same way that at one point somebody said, all your music in your pocket, and it was made possible, a behavior that nobody really wanted, but everybody had an aspiration, a dream too, and it was made possible through technology. What sort of question will come raised by these new interactions that will target and that will kind of create new industries from the get-go? So in many ways, all of the hoteliers we heard this morning didn't see Airbnb coming. Probably a lot of the music makers right now are not imagining a future where maybe music will be fully, completely generated by AI platforms, tailored to your individual taste, refined second by second, and you'll be listening to some sort of like soundtrack or live soundtrack that will be just constantly changing around you, you know, for your circumstances. Is that the Spotify of the future? Maybe. Or, you know, will sort of like new narratives, and again, new forms of creativity will be generated by these new platforms. I was in New York over the summer with my kids. We went to the MoMA, and at the entry in the foyer, basically a space like this, they had a constantly changing art form that was pulling from all of the MoMA's database of art and creating essentially a moving art piece that was never the same and constantly based on the same source material, on the same corpus, as you would say in data terms. So is that, at the moment, that is kind of the pinnacle of what we could imagine that artificial creativity to look and feel like, but who knows what's next, you know? And will these statues one day be speaking to us and interacting with us as we speak, or maybe commenting, or being less static and just there to just remind us of a past that we can't hardly relate to.
Thank you so much for that. I think we need to wrap up.
So,
One last question?
no.
Okay.
We're good, okay. Very good. Thank you so much, Marcus and Fabio.